China is many things. It's home to ancient ideas, and it's a society in constant change. But wherever you are, one thing is always obvious. This is unmistakably China. There's a Chinese way of getting things done, and it seems to be working. My name is Jonathan Clements, and I'm a writer and historian of East Asia. When I'm not writing, I'm travelling, visiting towns and cities, meeting new people, and trying to make sense of the cultures I encounter. So now I've come to this extraordinary country to find out just what is the Chinese way. I've come to Shandong province, a place fairly typical of eastern China, a pulsating mix of ancient and modern that is little known to outsiders. It has one major distinction. 2,500 years ago, it was home to a philosopher, China's greatest and most famous thinker, Confucius. His values, cooperation, respect and discipline, have come to dominate the Chinese way of doing things, even if many of the Chinese themselves are unaware of it.
Confucius is still celebrated thousands of years after he died, and through him, over the last 2.5 millennia, his homeland of Shandong has come to shape the culture and history of all of China.
绵绵芙蓉浪花烟湿离场，一河渔火醉飘香。
Shu Zhenzhen comes from a long line of women who rowed travellers along this canal through the picturesque town of Taoist.
辛苦的工作吗？
对，天天滑，所以说你看我的肌肉，胳膊都很粗的，就是分为早班和晚班，平均的上班时间呢是8个小时。
Taoist used to be an important point on the Grand Canal, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the longest canal in the world, running over 1,750 kilometres through China. These days, being rowed about here is just fun for visitors like me.
So, 怎么办？
您直接走过来，然后你看。像我这样手抓着这个东西，往后拉，往前推，你的脚那个脚换过来，然后这样推，这样拉，要保持这个绳子是这样的，是绷直的，再推，对，看前方，因为你要是不看前方，船头往哪走你就不好说。
I think I would have already crashed this boat several times. I'm looking in the wrong direction.
If I had to dream up the most typical, picturesque old Chinese town I could, then it would probably end up looking something like Taoist. But there's just one thing. It's not actually old. In fact, this was pretty much all built starting in 2008, on top of the ruins of the original old town. This was the site of a major battle between China and Japan in 1938. The Chinese won, but the cost was heavy, with tens of thousands killed on both sides, and the old town was destroyed. For 70 years it lay in ruins, and then was restored to become a popular cultural destination. The work has been done with care and attention to detail, so is it just a fake? A theme park version of Ye Olde China?
This place is a reconstruction, but I like it because it's not just about the buildings. It even reconstructs the visitors. People who come here are encouraged to have a peaceful, harmonious existence and indulge in traditional pursuits. It's exactly the kind of place that Confucius would have loved.
It may not be old, but it's a way of paying respect to the old town that once was here, and to Chinese heritage in general. Not all of Chinese heritage is bricks and mortar. Some is more transient. The city of Hezhi is home to the most Chinese of living icons, the peony flower, and they take their peonies here really seriously.
There are so many peony products to choose from. Peony seed oil, I don't know actually what it does, but we'll get it home and find out. Peony eau de toilette, make your toilette smell peony-like. That's good enough for me. I'll take some of that. Now, face masks. Resume charming moistness. I think charmingly moist is what we're going to go for. Fantastic. Where's the checkout?
Peonies have been cultivated in China for over 1500 years and are one of the country's cultural emblems. They feature in artworks, designs, everywhere. In fact, peonies are quite literally the stuff of legend.
Boy meets girl, boy marries girl, girl brings her sister, so his brother marries her, and they all lived happily ever after, apart from the fact that the two girls turned out to be the divine daughters of a giant magical peony from Shandong, and they flew away, leaving behind their two children, the white and the purple peony.
These days, cultivating peonies involves a lot less magic and a lot more science and experience. Zhao Xinyong is one of the foremost experts in this field and has bred a dozen new varieties in his career. That may not sound like a lot, but this isn't easy work. Stamens and pollen have to be gathered, and cuttings taken, grafts made and planted, and other flowers pollinated by hand, and then the plants have to be cared for.
The new peony bushes are brought here to this greenhouse, which simulates the conditions of springtime, and they stay here growing for 50 days before they're ready for the outside world. But your problems aren't over there, because discovering if you've created a new variety requires waiting another 10 years.
An independent board of assessors then comes and decides whether a new variety has been found. It's a stressful time for Mr. Zhao.
这个是非常，因为你定这个名字，一定要开，不是我那要突然间开始不开就唯你是问。啊，对呀，对，这个我觉得也算可以吧。哎呀，是不是？你最后说的。不，我说我个人意见，我说也算可以吧。这就对了。
肯定心里面很期待，能够就是说我这10年甚至更多年的时间，能选出几个新的品种，有特点的品种，那样我心情肯定要高兴得多。如果要是没有，就是说这一次选出来，就是这10来年的时间选不出一个品种来，我的心情肯定不是太好。
Still, there's nothing to pick you up like a nice cup of tea, made from peonies, of course.
牡丹呢，浑身都是宝，因为牡丹的花瓣可以做成花瓣茶，它的中间的那个黄蕊就是雄蕊，可以做成那个花蕊茶，它的根呢就是入药，在中药里面叫丹皮。这个牡丹的花粉呢，它就是说对于就是养颜、美容这一块有很好的功效。 特别是对于男人来说，这个前列腺这一块也有一个很好的这个预防的效果。
It's another story of China remaking itself. Science and modern methods being brought into the age-old art of cultivating new peony hybrids. But the spirit behind it has not changed at all. It's still that quest for perfection. Back in ancient China, performance and ritual filled everyday life, something that Confucius made the bedrock of his philosophy. Confucius's core values of discipline and cooperation are still part of Shandong's performance world.
Everybody had their place, and every place had its ritual. So there was a correct way to stand, to walk, to move your arms. And you can still see that level of formality alive today, here, in the Chinese theatre.
I've come to meet Liu Lili, a renowned singer who's going to show me just how formal Chinese opera is.
请进。
刘老师。
你好。
你好，我叫 Jonathan。
你好，欢迎您。
谢谢。
咱们要根据不同的你的人物来打选这个底色。你看旦角呢稍微就是白一点，生角呢小生呢稍微比这个旦角稍微暗一些。要是老旦呀或者是老生啊，他们的颜色要更深一些，更暗一些，来体现它的不同年龄的这个层次。
The singers get a lot of practice at going through the makeup ritual.
How many times a week do you perform?
有时候多一些，有时候少一些，大概在200多场之内吧，一年要完成200多场。
Okay.
现在我要帮你打底色。
Okay.
Obviously, it's time for me to get made up as well. What could possibly go wrong?
不要有汗，现在脸上都有点汗。
So, what is it that you love about Liu Jingxi?
我是从小听着柳琴戏长大的。从小的时候，我父母在台上演出，我就会在台下面看，所以从小就耳濡目染的，就特别喜欢他的这个腔调，他的这个音乐特别的好听。
The opera here is based around a folk instrument, the liu qin, which gives it a unique flavour. Before the main event, me singing, Lily shows us how it's done in all its glorious Confucian formality. Apparently this opera is called Visiting Mother-in-Law, though it's not like any family visits I've ever had. It's possible an audience from 100 years ago wouldn't recognise the opera.
我们的现在的柳琴戏，无论是在唱腔上还是表演上，都有创新，都有改变。但是这个创新改革都是在基于传统之上，要保留这个传统。
Opera is a living tradition. In fact, you could say that innovation is itself a Chinese tradition.
到舞台上来，我教你2句柳琴戏的唱腔，也是这出戏的，就是小姐跟这个书生2个人对唱的这么一折。
I'm playing a young scholar, which seems about right. But first, to meet the band.
我给你介绍一下我们这个柳琴的主要伴奏乐器，这是我们的鼓，也是这个一个大戏的一个剧的灵魂，总指挥。然后这是我们的主弦，柳叶琴，叫柳琴。我们这个柳琴戏也是以这个柳琴这个主要伴奏乐器由它来起的这个名字，叫柳琴戏。
放 OK， 这样是吗？
哎，这个尽量出来一点，大拇指自然放松就可以了。
OK， 可以吧？
好，这样就可以了。
哦。
There's no instrument I can actually play, so putting this in my hands is like giving a monkey a computer.
When it's clear I'm not getting anywhere with the liu qin, it's time to try singing.
只教你2句，然后带上我们的身段，好不好？
好。
小姐，
小姐，带我情一生，金玉终身呐，
也难忘那一，
也难忘那一。
很棒，很棒，很棒。
With the words halfway into my head, I've got to learn the correct movements. It's not a dance, it's a kind of ritual.
这个脚是这样的哈，你个子那么高，你要存一点腿的，半蹲的哈，是这样的啊。不要动哦，不要，你不要动哦啊，不要动哈，唱这一句不要动了，哎，就给他施礼的，就是我谢谢你，往外一翻，对，终身呐，也难忘，难忘呐。也难忘啊！唱得很好。咱现在呢，跟我们乐队的老师们一起合一遍，好不好？好。那就麻烦各位老师了。
同志们好。
百喜结长，百事百灵堂。
小姐，带我进你身，情有终身呐，也难忘呐。
很好，很好。好。
though, Mr. Wong is gathering something different. Small mollusks. And, more strangely, seagrass.
从海里边捞上来，放到瓦上晾晒，晒干以后才可以用。
And what kind of uses does seaweed have for you?
它的最大的好处就是一个现房子，能多屋顶用。
You use this to build houses?
对。
I find that very hard to believe.
不，可以看一看。
当然我要看。Yeah, okay, let's go see.
Mr. Wong is actually the head of this village, and one look shows how they use the seagrass here. The roofs are thatched with it. It's a cheap and effective building material. And it brings an extra income stream. Tourists. Obviously, I'm going to have a closer look.
你好。
这个呀，现在这个保护文化遗产这个我专款呢，秀山这个东西，这个海藻房子是东南下凉，那福田田野的时候，外面也都穿不起壳了，一进家凉哇哇的，根本很舒服。
So why doesn't it all just blow away in the wind when you put it on the roof?
顶上晒上不了，这不是什么压嘴的时候，整个一压实了，你行，你压我压你，咋子，基本上刮不了。一是龙卷风挺刮，一般那个风，十几左右的风都刮不了。
I can't help noticing that the thatchers are all of a certain age. It seems that this is yet another of the old skills that are being forgotten. And even the seagrass they're using isn't the freshest. Not enough people gather it, so they actually have to recycle grass from houses that have been given modern tile roofs nearby. New houses with tile roofs may be modern and convenient, but tourists are rather less likely to come to see them. Further round the coast is the Penglai Pavilion. It was built over 1,000 years ago to defend against pirates and invaders, here to help themselves to the rich booty heading into China. By the Ming dynasty, the pavilion was deemed too little, and the so-called Water City was built in the late 1300s, in reality as a naval base and fortified harbour. It was not just goods that arrived here. Even before the pavilion was built, a Buddhist monk arrived in Shandong from India, bringing scriptures with him. Today, Shandong has a rich Buddhist heritage, including some very fine temples, not only with giant Buddha statues, but many tiny ones as well, not for show, but as aids to prayer and meditation. Off the Shandong coast lie the Changshan Islands, my next destination. They are known locally as Long Island, or the Isles of the Immortals. Lin Chuanjia is a local fisherman. He knows the dangers of the sea and that fishermen like him are far from immortal, so he, like generations before him, comes to the temple of the sea goddess Mazu to pray.
The legends about Mazu begin with her as a humble fisherman's daughter, Lin Mo Niang, the silent girl, and the villagers believed that she could foretell the future and heal the sick and even make it rain, but she thought her main duty was to protect her brother's ships. And so she would put on a bright red dress and she'd carry a lantern and she would stand on the hilltop like a human lighthouse and she would guide their ships back in each night. But one evening, one of the boats didn't come back and she thought it was her fault. She was distraught and she was last seen weeping, walking into the sea. And since that time, Chinese sailors and Chinese fishermen have believed that Mazu is watching over them.
As a voyager, I feel I should also pay my respects to Mazu, and Mr. Lin shows me the correct procedure. There seems to be a genuine feeling for Mazu behind Mr. Lin's prayers.
What does Mazu mean to you?
来保我，都是说来有这个寄托，来追求他保我平安。 我们都是渔民嘛，都是在海上作业，有风有浪，上神马祖，马祖都会给我们带来幸福平安，保佑我们发财，都是这么意思。
The ritual is simple as the request made to the goddess over the centuries. Keep me safe, bring me home, help me live. The eternal hope of seafarers. If this life in the Isles of the Immortals has changed little, I'm beginning to realise it's the same for Shandong and for China as a whole. New things come along, but they never replace the old ways. They just add to them. The Taoist temple of supreme purity at Laoshan has a long history, dating back some 2,000 years. And if Taoism had a founder, it was this man, Lao Tzu, a fabled leader of spiritual thought. Both Confucius and Lao Tzu believed in what's now seen as the good Chinese value of respect. For Confucius, it was respect for tradition, ritual, and civilization. For Lao Tzu and the Taoists, it was respect for the natural world and its harmony. A meeting between the two great thinkers is the stuff of Chinese legend.
Confucius took his ideas about ritual and ceremony and mankind's place in the universe, and he presented them to the man who would become Lao Tzu, who was frankly unimpressed. And it's like he was criticizing him for thinking too hard. He said, "Your very quest for selflessness is itself selfish. You should just be at one with the universe. You should just be."
Confucius ignored the advice and remained a doer, performing rituals, travelling China, trying to help the rulers govern wisely. It's clear Lao Tzu left a strong impression on him though. He called him a dragon. But here at the temple, generations of Taoists have learned how to just be. Taoists do have many rituals themselves. This one welcomes a batch of monks and nuns who are particularly good Taoists, a kind of top monk. From the outside, it looks like a taste of the mystical East, but I want to find out what's actually behind it. Abbot Ho Xinrui is in charge of the whole temple here.
其实道教来讲，就注重什么呢？人与这种自然的和谐，人与自然的和谐，然后人与人之间的和谐，人与社会的和谐，人得到这种和谐了，都达到了自然和谐、社会和谐、人和谐，那世界都和谐了，世界的大同了，因为我们是有了天、有了地、有了水，才生养万物。所以我们要对它有感恩的心，敬畏的心。所以说我们道教最注重这个天地水，还有就是供奉我们的先祖圣人。
I think it's time for me to become one with nature myself, so the abbot takes me to his favourite spot for meditation.
这样，
It makes it look so easy.
好，
Frankly, I'm not sure how he manages it in that ancient style gown. Anyway, I'm here to learn, not make fashion comments.
平常我就是在这个位置做的
OK.
把这个腿要拿上来，把它放到这一个，然后把这个腿呢，把它放到这，就这样。
This meditation business seems like hard work.
就说这样呢，呼吸的时候气呢，自然而然的就聚到我们讲丹田这个位置。对对对。眼睛呢是7分闭，眼睛3分睁。要把眼睛全部打开散神。要闭掉的话就是容易昏昏沉沉的，就是找那个恍恍惚惚的感觉。我们一般就这样。
It's a lot to keep in mind, but I hold my eyes 30% open, and in this peaceful spot, perhaps I begin to feel a little closer to nature, and to understanding how China keeps the old and the new thriving side by side. Nature forces its way even into the heart of Jinan, capital city of Shandong. Fresh springs bubble up, the water flowing in from the surrounding hills. Beautiful gardens have been built around this pure, clean water, an inspiration to poets and praised by the aesthete emperor Qianlong himself. Even today, people collect the water for drinking and cooking. Spring water is used exclusively in this hotel kitchen. Here, they prepare food in the Shandong style, one of the 8 great traditions of Chinese cuisine. Food is one of the foundations of any culture, so maybe we'll learn most about how China works in the kitchen. Here, the food is beautifully prepared and presented. Confucius would probably have recognized these dishes, as this cuisine has its origins in his day, and he would have appreciated their fine presentation. It's a sign of respect for the diner. When it comes to dining with others, even today respect is very important. I'm on my way to a restaurant, the kind you or I might visit, to see how Confucian attitudes still infuse an evening out.
Yan 老师，你好，你好，你好。So what kind of fish is this?
这道菜是今天准备的一道这个糖醋黄河鲤鱼。
Chef Yan Wei-shing has been working for 35 years, and he's going to introduce me to a specialty of his regional cuisine, and he's very aware of its Confucian values.
下面开始，鲁菜主要是以选料精细、做工严谨。孔子的思想是食不厌精、脍不厌细的指导思想，指导我们一代又一代做每一道菜。
The dish is Chopping garlic is just about within my set of culinary skills.
薄片儿。
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. 这样是吗？
哎，对对对，对对对，可以，
可以，
可以，
就是可以。
可以。下面开始改刀。
Okay.
啊。
But when it comes to preparing the fish, I'm happy to leave it to the master.
啊，传统的这个技艺啊，从刀工、勺工，包括火候，都练得非常的扎实。
Next step, the batter.
从鱼尾开始啊，哎，抓住它，哎，起来，好，发过来，再过这边。
And as for the frying, well, this oil is boiling.
现在开始炸鱼，下这个油锅啊。
Everybody back.
对，再下锅，啊，下去以后呢，先不要把手离开，先要定型。这个鱼下锅以后啊，我们要炸10分钟，啊，炸到这个外酥里嫩，呈这个金黄色。
When the fish emerges from the oil, it has a distinct curve, thanks to the skillful slicing, and I'm going to deliver it to the guests, whom Yan also regards with Confucian respect.
招待客人啊，就等于像招待自己的亲人一样，就像招待自己的父亲、母亲一样，要把心掏给他们。
Okay.
哎，对，端平。
Don't drop it, because then we'll
This
be in
fish is
trouble.
one of a carefully planned series of dishes presented to the guests.
大家好，你们的黄河鲤又来了。有朋自远。
这
Discovered Confucius at the same age as these children.
7、8岁的时候开始喜欢读孔子的这个经书，所以说呢，我当时就梦想要像他们那样，做一个儒家的君子。
The ceremony begins with Mr. Duan making sure the children's robes are in order.
仪式第2项，感谢父母。
At the centre of the ceremony is possibly the biggest Confucian value, filial piety. You owe everything to your parents.
儿子入学了，感谢母亲的养育之恩。
To me, this is one of the most fascinating things I've seen in Shandong. I wonder if the children keep this level of respect for their parents at home as well. I certainly can't imagine any Western children would be willing to bow to their mothers. The whole ceremony has several different stages. Beating the drum symbolises opening the pupil up to wisdom. Writing the first simple character shows how the pupil-teacher relationship will work. And apparently, the 2 red dates represent an aspiration to getting full marks.
弟子训蒙。
The ceremony ends with communal chanting, a list of the pupils' duties. The red dots on their foreheads signify opening their minds to learning. For Mr. Duan, seeing this new generation of pupils is a great pleasure. Mr. Duan thinks the best way for me to understand Confucianism is to go through my own ritual. So I'm going to have to dress the part.
这就是当年孔子啊，这个穿着的儒服。 这是从左到右。
Yeah. So this one goes here, and this one goes here. Okay.
There's a correct way to put on the hat. And there's even a correct way to sit down.
你看这个位置呢，坐椅子的一半。
There. Okay. So I have to move. What do you think Confucius would have made of the ceremony this morning?
这个1、2千年之后啊，有这么多的。 这个小同学，有像您这样的这个国外嘉宾，一起来这个继承，一起来关注，我想呢他会很欣慰。
And what relevance does it have in the modern world?
儒家所说的这个道啊，包括自然的规律，也包括人生的、社会的。他交朋友，对吧？他和人相处，怎么样更和谐？怎么样对他人、对自己，更完美？ 他会受益的，所以说呢，他懂得谦让，懂得诚信，懂得这些基本的做人的这个原则，对他自己的成长是非常有好处的。因为我呢是继承和信奉儒学的，我当然希望儒学能够传遍世界。
I don't know how much influence Confucianism, with its formality and rituals, will end up having around the world. But it certainly underlies much of China's thinking. New generations are proud to be Chinese and see these values as contributing to the nation's success. Rituals, traditions, ceremonies, respect, honour, heritage, these all belong to the Chinese way. They're part of the daily life of the people of Shandong and China as a whole.